Right, let's do this again. Hello and welcome to the Comedians Paradise. This is a podcast where we speak to comedians and clowns from across the comedy world. Now, today's guest, you may know her as Sunny Chatum from America's Got Talent. She's a great clown who I met at the Gaulier School 2 years ago. She's absolutely brilliant. Please welcome Krista Komondor. Well, you do mention it. Please do. It is quite funny what I just done. Oh
I
my
love
God.
that. I love that. Right. We start, it's like a perfect idiot, right? It's a perfect introduction, I think. Like, not calling you an idiot, but I love the term idiot. But yeah, we had this great conversation and you're like, oh, we it didn't press record.
But so I'll be honest about one thing about myself self as a whole. Whenever I've done stand up or comedy as a whole, do you know the comedy? No, not comedy. Do you know the sketch comedy act? Do you know the? Do you know Frank Spencer?
Does he do the thing with the arms?
Not quite. He's. Have you heard of the show? It's an English sitcom called Some Others Do Have 'Em.
No, no.
Okay, have a look at it. But he is a
Some
great clown.
mothers.
Do have him, and he has a high pitched voice. Basically, he sums me up quite well. Like someone said that our Zorro does Frank Spencer does magic, and basically what she's saying is I get most of my comedy from doing blunders on stage or in life, and that's always been the case. My biggest laughs have always come from being, and my clown is I think I'm smarter than what I am, but I'm not as, but I do clumsy things, but I'm also not as thick as other people think I am. So there's a bit of a game there. I feel that that's what I am.
I love that. Yeah, I know I'm really killing it if I'm annoyed that people are laughing.
Why is that?
That's always how it is. It's when I think I know, okay, I know what I'm going to do. That's really funny. And that's where the failure is, right? When you try to do the thing that's funny and that's the flop because what you're doing is not funny, so it's the vulnerability. But I know whenever I'm just annoyed that people are laughing, I'm like, it must be really good. Like I actually was on AGT again this year. It didn't get televised, but when I was done, I left the stage and I said to the co-executive producer, I said, "Did you like it?" Because I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell at all. Um, and I keep replaying that whole thing over in my head to be like, what happened? That and I'm like, I must have done good because I didn't get it. You know, it wasn't. I think because when I'm trying to be funny, it's such a push, and I'm almost looking for the laughs and looking to get something, and it seems to be always when I'm not trying to get
Yeah,
that it really works because I guess that's when I'm being authentic instead of putting on
a mask.
a mask. Yeah.
One th What I want to say on this is, what would you say is? There's two things I want to say on that. For myself, I think recently I've had a thought, and I had a moment recently when I was on stage. Is when I'm thinking about playing a game with the audience, I'm not focused on getting a laugh, but I'm doing something where I'm excited and interested to see where it goes. And I just go for the ride. Seems to be a good thing for me to do on stage. And on top of that, I've said what my clown is or my knobheadedness is. What would you say if you're going to say what your idiot is? What would you say it is? You said it before in terms of like you get your bigger laughs where you think it's going to work, but then it doesn't, and you get annoyed at people for laughing at the thing that you didn't want them to laugh at. Is that your clown?
I think my clown is like I want to play, and I'm like a cat that's like when faced with a and this is what happened on TV, like faced with a bully cat, right? A cat that's like, "Arr," and I'm just like, oh, I'm just oblivious that they're a bully cat. And I'm like, well, let's just play. Let's just have fun. I think my clown is very sensitive. There's some clowns that are just incredible, physical performers and spectacle and very up and energetic. And my clown's more of I think, well, it varies. Like, I think I enjoy the clown where it's subtle and it's slow and it pulls people in. And there's a strong feeling of humanity. Like I think that's why Sunny was so successful because it's crazy. I keep finding these clips that went viral that I didn't even know about. Like it's been like over like 100 million, and there are people from all different, all over the world. And the people who really, what is I think so engaging is that there's this struggle and this vulnerability and this drama, um, but also the subtlety of Sunny because he's so simple. He's so simple. He's from Paris, Texas. He speaks French, you know. And so me, when I was living in France, I could never speak French. Like I spoke more French in the United States because I was so afraid. But when I'm dressed as Sunny, I'll go into a French cafe here because there's a big population of people, you know, expats from France, and I'll speak French to them as Sunny, and they'll say, "You're doing such a, your French is so good." And Sunny, you know, his pronunciation's not great, but he's trying. But because he's like, that's what I feel like that's my inner self. It's that I want to be able to try, but I just really have to look so perfect. So I think with my clown characters, it's that you're like, oh wow, they're doing such a great job just because they are vulnerable and they are kind of in that delighted idiot kind of place.
Hmm.
Um,
And each performer has their sort of journey. And I'm going to start this question, which I've already asked you again, but let's see how it goes. um, have you seen the film Slumdog Millionaire? I've told you this before, and that the guy he was able to answer all the questions because of his life's journey. So, with your comedy journey, what led to you, as we mentioned before, your love for clowning, but what led to you to find the drug of clowning?
the drug of clowning, yeah. Well, I found the drug of stand-up comedy, and that was about actually it was about 10 years ago. And I was working as a nurse for a large investment bank where I was like the school nurse for all these, you know, investment bankers, and like 12,000 people in the building. I had this huge medical department I was part of. I never really wanted to be a nurse, but it's a path that I followed because my mother is a nurse and I had no idea what to do. So, of course, I became a nurse practitioner. Like I went as far as I could. So it was 10 years ago, and I was at this place where I'm so unfulfilled. I'd been writing plays and I'd been producing little plays. But then you know, I had this very secure job that I was miserable. I was just miserable in, and I didn't know what to do. So I was like, oh, I'll be a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Oh, I'll do, you know, just trying to explore what I wanted to do based on what I had been doing. And then I went to a career coach, and he said, "What would you do if you were never even paid for it?" And I said, I'd be a stand-up comedian. And so I very compulsively started. It took me about a month to get on stage, but I very compulsively started just, and it's a drug, you know. And in New York, you can hit like 5 open mics a day if you want to. So I would do these what I call 90 and 90s, so 90 mics in 90 days, and I would finish that round up with doing a bringer, so I could get a tape. So I could watch my progress. I started a YouTube channel called Becoming a Comedian to track my journey, and so I became really just obsessed with it. And you know, you get a really good endorphin hit when you're sitting around it because in open mics you do get some laughs and you laugh at other people, and there is a community. Even though stand-ups, we're very um kind of, you know, loners really, but you know, you're in this scene and you just see the same people all the time, and you get to the point where you can finish other people's jokes, and you see like a lot of there are a number of comedians that I started out with that ended up, you know, going on Colbert and really making a name for themselves. So these are the people that I started out with, and I like the communal aspect of it. You know, there were a lot of course of acerbic personalities, um, but that whole like we're all in this together kind of feeling. And then I created a character. named Madame Commodore, who's a French men's health expert and love and romance expert. I created her uh, based on this whole thing that happened in France. And um, so I just started putting all these little clips of this character together. And someone said, "Why don't you do a solo show?" So I just put all these things together. I got a director. I did it here in New York. And then I wanted a new director. It wasn't working. So I would go to this open mic on Saturdays that started, it went from 1 to 5 p.m., a long open mic. So I wanted to get there first to sign up first. So you get there at 11 a.m. The sign up started at noon. And one day I was sitting there, I got there, an hour early for the sign up, and I was sitting next to this young comedian that I knew. And I said to him, I said, I've really seen a change in you. You're so much more comfortable on stage and you're more personal. Like, what are you doing? What's happening? And he said, "Well, I started taking a clown class." And I was really intrigued. And he told me that it was a gentleman named Ed Malone who had been teaching clown for a long time. He was a gaulier student, and now he's got an agent. He's doing film. He's doing great. But he's like, I started going to this clown class. So I said, I'm always very willing. And if I hear something that is exciting to me, I'll just jump on it. I'll just start pursuing it. So I went to this clown class. It was in a really bizarre, like little warehouse in South Brooklyn. And I walked in, and you have this kind of interesting, really tall, lanky guy who's like yelling at people, and this Irishman. And I started doing the beginning of my show, and he said, "I want to direct your show. I want to direct your show." So he ended up directing my show, and he started telling me about the school, Philippe's school. And then I took the show to Edinburgh, and in Edinburgh, I saw these clowns that just blew my mind. I went to the shows, and it was like I couldn't laugh anymore, so I just started banging on my legs, and I thought, I want to do what they're doing. And one of those people was Vigo Venn, who just won Britain's Got Talent. And I saw him perform, and I said, "Where do these people go to school?" And I said, "I'm going to go to school." So I came back from Edinburgh really depressed because I'd used all of my vacation days to go for 3 weeks, and went, back to this job where I didn't have any windows. I was sitting between a kitchen and the bath. It was just awful, but it was a beautiful situation to push myself so hard to get out of that situation. So it was kind of a gift. And I wrote to the school. It was 2019. I wrote to the school and I got my acceptance letter, and I said, 2020, I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to quit my job. I'm saving up money, and I'm just going to go to this school. I bought a one-way ticket to France. I booked an Airbnb, and I was just excited. And then I did another solo show here in New York that uh, closed in like March of 2020. So March of 2020 came, and everyone knows what happened. It was about June, and I saw that acceptance letter on the wall, and I just ripped it off the wall. I was like, "That's never going to happen. I'm never going to be able to go to that school." Um, so yeah, so a year passed, and I was taking one of Ed's classes in the park, which I hadn't gone to in a long time. I know this is a long story. Um, and then I ran into a woman, and he said in the class, and he said, she's going to Gaulier this summer. She's going to go for the 2 week class. And I got so jealous. I was so jealous of her. And then I said, "Krista, why don't you just go for 2 weeks?" So I signed up. I went for 2 weeks, and I fell in love. And someone said, and I had good moments. I had good moments in the summer. So that gave me the push too. And so someone said, "Just put a deposit down for the year." And so I did. I live in New York. I have a cat that has special needs, and I just happened to find someone who would stay in my apartment and take care of my cat. Um, I was like, "Well, I still have this full time job." But I thought, I'm going to work remotely. They don't need to know. So I moved to France to go to school. Would go to school during the day and then work until like 11 or 12 at night. And that's how I found it. That's how I fell into it.
Yeah. And
Long going.
with the girly school as a whole, what expectations did you have before you went in there? And how did it Yeah, how did it, what surprised you about it?
My expectation, well, Ed said just trust the process. So I didn't really know much about it going into it. And but I knew I wanted to have that magnetism that I saw in the other clowns and that I saw in him. I wanted to have that ability to just blow audiences away. And I had faith that whatever this school did uh, was gonna. Oh my gosh, someone's at my door. Shoot.
So,
Um, Hi, I'm sorry, I'm in a meeting. Okay, thank you very much. Maybe it's delivery person. I don't know. I wanted to be able to blow people away, and I was like, okay, Sasha Baron Cohen went to this school. You know, Vigo, these other clowns I've seen, they've gone to this school. I was just, yeah, I was like, I don't care what I have to do. I need to make it happen. And what surprised me, well, I wish people had said, like, there's this little video of Philippe, and he said the student's only job is to change, which I think is so beautiful. And it really touches me when I heard that, it really touched me. And I wish I'd known that that was my only job.
hmm,
Because I went, with the ego, like, well, everything I do is perfect, or I'm going to be great. And well, I guess that's part of it. Like, you get knocked down. Um, and so, but I think I was really hard on myself. But I think it's natural. You take this huge risk to leave everything behind for a year, um, and you know, considerable expense. And yeah, I think that's what surprised me. And I had success over the summer, little successes. So I thought it's going to be amazing. I wish I had done more just drop in improvs here to prepare. I hadn't really done any kind of improvisation for 2 years before I went, a good 2 years. I wish that's something I'd sharpened up on before I went,
hmm.
because I think I really could have. I don't know, but it was exactly the way it was supposed to be. I think. Yeah.
And what would you say were the positive and negatives of your experience at the school? If you don't mind me asking that question.
Oh, I think the positive was just having my ego on the chopping block, and that was also the negative. um, my entire life changed afterwards. That job that I had, I got downsized. I had it for 16 years, and I got downsized. Thank God. I was actually praying twice a day that that would happen. And in December of 2021, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I just totally lost your question. What did you ask me?
What are the negatives and positives of your gaulier experience, would you say?
um, the negatives, well, it's just the struggle that I had of letting go of my conception of myself, um, which was essential. That was absolutely essential to let go of that. And I let go kicking and screaming. Um, yeah, my whole conception of myself changed. And that was very painful. That was very painful. The positives, like, I came out with this character that I auditioned with and that really, like, gave me a lot of success. I couldn't have done what I did on that television show without having gone there. I remember a specific moment in class that I feel was, I look at that moment, and it's a moment where I was playfully challenging, and Philippe and I had this play back and forth. So I wasn't really seeing him as the authority figure. I think it happened in characters. I wasn't seeing him as an authority figure, but I was seeing someone to play with. Um, and that I saw elements of that full on reflected on that show, where I was bantering back and forth with the judges who, people like put them in the place of gods. And I just wanted to do my act. I didn't care that they were trying to stop me. I just wanted to keep continuing on with my act. And yeah, and going to the school made it possible. Going to the school made it possible for me to fail and get booed by 2,000 people. Um, and so, a lot of people say things like, "Oh, he's a racist, he's a misogynist." It's like, well, it's a game. Like everything that happened there, I feel was this beautifully, brilliantly constructed game, which by the end of the term, I mean, he could give me an insult and I would just laugh, or you hear him insulting someone else, and it we laugh because it was like, oh my gosh. And like, wow, that's what the whole purpose of this was, right? To have, for me, immunity on some degree to criticism, um, and just not to take things so seriously. Um, and even with, I had all these comments on this video that went like, I got 2.2 million likes, and I just, all the comments that were like, this is crap. 8 minutes of my life I lost, and I could just kind of laugh at it. And I read all the comments, and someone was upset that I was making people fun. They thought I was making fun of neurodivergent people, and they're like, "Why doesn't she just do blackface?" It was just really like weird, like awful. But I could take it in and laugh about it and say, "Oh, that's just this dumb person's opinion. What do I think of myself?" Another thing I feel like it's really important to talk about is, he has the drum, and you hear the sound of the drum as like, "Thank you, goodbye," and you might have prepared all week to present something, and "Thank you, goodbye," and it's gone. And so I think I learned how to make a strong proposal, how to bring a strong, like fully developed, nice, beautiful costume, well-rounded idea, and have someone say, you need to change everything about that. And that's what happened with Sunny. And so to have someone say that, and to a week later bring a new proposal integrating, the suggestion, and having that blow them away. So I think those week after week, the autocores, you know, bringing something, getting 2 seconds on stage that you've rehearsed all week and spent money on costume and so excited to present, and have to throw it out. I think that's what, in the real life, you know, I think that's what people want you to bring, unless they have a specific idea. But I think especially with a lot of film things, it's like I think Alfred Hitchcock would kind of do that. And a lot of actors didn't like working with him because he wouldn't give them specific direction. And he would just say no. And so I think that's one of one of the jewels that I got out of going to that school was to just throw my idea out and say, instead of, being filled with self-pity, why is he saying no to me? Because I got it out of my system, I like to think I got it out of my system in school. Because this year again, I presented a proposal to America's Got Talent, and I auditioned in front of the celebrity judges again, and that whole process was very much like that was an even bigger production. But being at a professional level, which is where I see myself being at a professional level, where I have to throw out my idea, and I have to not have be sulking about it. It's like, okay, that doesn't work. Great. I'll bring something new. Oh, you don't like that? Okay, I'll bring something new. And then, but there are times also when I can kind of fight a little bit for what I feel, um, what I feel is important. Not fight, but to have a conversation about it. But Philippe 100% gave me that ability. And I've heard people say, now once you leave school, you have the drum in your head. So I have this ability to really look at, I watch tapes of everything I do, and like, oh, well, was I bending my body? Am I loud enough? Do I have pleasure? Do I step onto the stage with pleasure, or do I have a death in my eyes. Um, he would say, have a little joke that you're telling. And I tell myself little dad jokes when I go out on stage to give that sparkle. I get to tell him this really dumb joke that you'd never tell. But I think that's really the most powerful things that I learned, that I can see the direct result um, in the success that I've had in
Hmm.
public play.
And so we've both done stand up before we got into clowning, but one of the things that I seem to have, because I did quite a few years of stand up before I got into the clowning side, but I know, as I said, I got in because I was good at being a knob on stage and being funny at that. But one of the things that I think stand up prepares you for when you go into the gaulier school is that when you get gonged off or it doesn't go well, I think it prepares you more for that than other art forms. That's what I felt. Because a
Mm.
lot of times when I had horrible statements said by him, or even in the theatre school I went in Italy when I get something horrible, it's not really affecting me that much on stage because I know when I go on stage I just look and have a good time. But
Mm.
I've had a lot more worse things said to me by other comics or by audiences on stage. So when he says all those horrible things, it doesn't affect you as much. And I want to ask you this: did the world of stand-up help prepare you for the brutality of Goliath?
Um, right. In stand up, the worst thing is just to have everyone stare at you,
Yeah,
even though sometimes they could be staring because they're processing something that you've shared.
yeah,
So the world of stand up, I think it gave me the ability to just push. And oh, I had a bad gig. Okay, let me do another
yeah.
mic. Oh, I'm going to do 5 mics today, which I've definitely done. I'm going to do five. The first one's going to be crap. It's like making pancakes. The first one you put out there, it's going to be stuck to the pan. The second one's going to be a little better. Oh, the third one, oh, I'm more fluid. Wow, I'm getting looser. Um, and so the power of just doing things over and over again and knowing that you're not going to be perfect.
Okay.
And it's
And
interesting because with stand up, when you have a new joke, right, you're excited. And I think that's what keys into it too. If something's fresh and exciting. Yeah. And that,
what yeah, sorry. What you said there is about telling dad jokes. I think comedians or clowns, if you listen, that's a great bit idea to do before you go on stage, to keep the things fresh. It was, yeah, it's very interesting. What I find interesting for what you said there is I've spoken to many different people on the podcast, and like Josephine Lacey said, I may have done these jokes a million times, but I owe it to the audience that I'm performing to do it fresh that they've never seen it before. And then you
mm,
hear like Mr. C, he says, treat comedy like it's like your lifelong partner and keep things fresh. And your process to keeping material fresh is to say the dud jokes, and then I had a, there's a guy called Sam. He's in Shoot from the Hip Improv. I've met him for a few years. I should know his surname, but I've forgotten it. But he says when he's doing the same joke again, he makes slight changes to either the order of the joke or the body movements to keep trick his body into it being something new.
mm, that's interesting.
But yeah, I think what you said there, and how important would you say keeping the performance alive and fun is as a stand-up and as a comedian.
Oh gosh, yeah, I haven't done stand up in a long time. But keeping it's number one. It's number one, and also to have my body relaxed. To do an actual physical warm up where I'm just like massaging my body and vocal warm up. Like when I was in Edinburgh in 2019, there was one night where I didn't warm up because I didn't think I had a crowd. And I went there, I was like, no one's gonna come. And then I had an audience, and it was strictly audience participation. I mean, it was a big chunk audience participation, and no one would play with me. But I hadn't physically warmed up. So I was tense. And, the audience can feel that tension. The audience can feel if I don't want to be there. Um, and so I think keeping it for me to have fun, and right now it's about bringing joy to others. So I legit want to bring joy to other people, and so it's not so selfish. And I think with stand up it can be that way, and I think it can be I think one thing I wanted to note is that I feel like stand up is more intellectual and clown is more from the heart. And because of that, I think clown really transcends political boundaries. It transcends so much versus with stand up, it's very much like coming from the head. I think, I feel, this is my perspective. And maybe because of that, stand ups tend to get angry at audiences and they think, well, why aren't you laughing? It's your problem. And clown is like, well, it's my responsibility. Um, and there are nights when you might not get anybody, right? But um, and then there's things like Sunny, where Sunny went out just to have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Following on from that, what do you feel stand-ups get wrong when you mention that you're a clown? Because I know there are, even in the London circuit, there are quite a few clowns that do stand-up gigs as well as being a clown. But what do you feel that when you speak to stand-ups in the New York comedy circuit get wrong about being a clown?
I don't think they even know what a clown is. I think they have no idea. They know what a variety performer is, and a lot of them are like, "Oh, I don't like that." But I think stand-ups don't specifically know what clowning is. Um, at least that's what it seems to me. I mean, I've done clown in stand-up rooms where it was just a dead room, and I was able to bring levity to it. But yeah, specifically, I don't really hang out with stand-up so much anymore. I'm not really in that. It doesn't make me feel good to be in that environment so much anymore.
Oh, okay. What is it about the stand-up environment that puts you off, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it's so self-involved. Um, I mean, there are people. I've gone to professional shows where they're yelling at the audience. They're like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm sitting there in the audience. I'm like, every comedian that came up said, "I heard you were a bad audience," and it just makes me sick. It just I was like, "How can you?" It's like, no, dude, it's you. You're coming on with a chip on your shoulder. How can anyone laugh? You know, we the audience feels what the performer feels. That's why if I see someone up on stage who is awkward, like, and what we kind of learned in school is like, that's awful because I'm feeling exactly what they're feeling. Um, and so after that, when I was, I bought a ticket to a show to have a good time, and I have someone yelling at me that it's my fault. Um, and I just want to machine gun there, like just kind of Philippe would say. Um, Um, and then I was going to open mics that were stand up, and someone insulted me. I was at Sunny, and I was like, wow, I've been on television with this character. I don't need some open mic comedian insulting me. Like, I was like, this character's too precious to do that with. Um, yeah, so I just found it wasn't helpful to develop things in those
Mm.
environments anymore.
And is there quite a big New York clown circuit?
It's starting to, yes, there's a fellow named Matthew Silver who is so lovely. Follow him. He's been viral for over a decade, and he runs a show called The Idiot's Hour that he does weekly, and he puts a lot of people up. Who maybe it's new, or I went to the show last week and there were lots of gaulier clowns, and it made me feel so happy. Not only that I got to connect to people that I hadn't seen in a while, but I know that I'm going to see a quality that is a different level of quality. But with the clowning, it's cool that people are doing. They're just taking a risk and seeing. just doing what they feel is fun, which is great. There are times when I wish, like, oh, I wish they had just a little bit of um, guidance or instruction or seeing other people, but people are just clowning's been around for you know hundreds, thousands of years. It's been around so long, and we feel like we intuitively have a sense of clown. But in New York, I'm really excited because he actually just got this really nice big venue in the Lower East Side, and I'm going to be performing on it in January, and larger audience sizes. So it's really nice to see that it's growing. And the show last week, it was packed. So he's really worked tirelessly, and he pays everyone. It's very fair, and which people should be paid, And I don't perform for free anymore. I don't do that. But so I'm really excited. He's really bringing clown to the city, which it in a way that I don't think it has ever been brought here, other than just little shows here and there.
Hmm. I know that there's the clown gym in New York, which is supposed brought a lot of clowning to people in the area, right? But I know that Zach Zucker occasionally comes down. But so do you feel that clowning in New York's going to be a big thing, and there's going to be a big sort of circuit of clowns in New York, like there is in like London and maybe LA?
I think so. There's no more clown gym, and the Brooklyn Comedy Collective has classes. Um, they don't pay their teachers what I think is a fair wage. So, um, okay, but your question is, are they gonna? I know that people are very curious about it, and so hopefully there will be more. I think there's a place though when there's instruction. I think the people who are instructing, need to be paid fairly, and that might increase the costs of what people are paying in terms of a class. So, but I think people are just getting out there. Like Matthew was running a fool's workshop once a week, and no, people are just going and listening to the audience and trying different things, and those are free. He pays for them out of his own pocket. It's donation based, and some gaulier clowns are kind of involved in that. But there's not really a lot of formal instruction happening. Um, yeah, but despite that, it's growing.
Hmm. Would, despite you feeling warmth and you sticking most to the clowning side of New York comedy, would you ever consider gigging also on the stand up to get the stage time alongside that and in different rooms? Or do you feel that that's an environment you'd much rather stay away from?
If I'm working out an act, like the act I was working out this year for AGT, that's the only place where I can work something out. And when it depends how I'm feeling. Like if I'm not feeling in a vulnerable place, I can go into those environments because I do know a lot of people there. Um, and it's not a problem. Someone can say something to me and it just kind of bounces off of me. But I think if I'm feeling in a vulnerable place, then I don't so much want to do that. So I think it's if I am working an act that I'm like, I just need to work out, then I will go there. But it's really not just to get general stage time anymore. I think it's just like when I have a specific directive. Um, but also seeing I can do a lot of that just by having an idea what the act is at home and then going in a very directed way of like this is what I'm looking to get out of this experience.
Okay. And what with the clowning community as a whole, do you also gig outside of New York as well in regards to the clowning stuff, or is it mostly in New York that you're focused on at the moment? I mean, you're going to the Fringe, but what's how is clowning also changing in the whole of America as well in terms of?
Well, I mean, there's the LA clowns. Well, with Sunny's Hour show, I want to tour the United States,
Okay.
preferably in Winnebago. I want to bring And I didn't have songs when I went on TV last year. Now I've got songs and I've got this whole act. And I bring instruments that Sunny has made to the audience. And so I make the audience part of it. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to doing, is touring that show and getting an audience. I want to create a sense of play with the audience. When I first started doing stand up, I would travel. I'd go to France. I'd go to, you know, England. I'd go to Ireland. Um, right now, I've just been in New York, so I've just been using my. It hasn't been, but if and I when I do tour, I want it to be more directed versus, and I just don't want to be spending a lot of my own funds to do that. When I used to have just a, huge plethora of money that I was just throwing at traveling and things like that, and now I'm living more in a more thoughtful way in terms of finances versus I'm just going to throw money at things.
Now, what's for anyone that's and this is out of pure interest. Now, you get an image of like these talent shows, and obviously I don't want to go and answer anything that you're not comfortable sharing, but I know one person who went on and Britain's Got Talent, and he had some very strange experience. So he plays three characters. He plays his name is Donald Mackerel. He plays Donald Mackerel. He plays the Penguin, and he plays Mr. Badger. Mr. Badger's a very dodgy comic. So there's a lot of his character does a lot of dark jokes, and Britain's Got Talent asked him to come on the show, and he said, "How about I go in as a penguin? That's more of a fit for it." And they said, "No, we want to see Mr. Badger." And he says, "Are you sure? Because it's a bit dodgy." And they said, "Why don't you come to London and do it?" And they said, "No, I'm all the way in Manchester. You got to come over there." So the producers came over to where he is, and then they watched him perform, and they said, and they still put him on, but he's not quite got. It's not quite live on Britain's Got Talent, but he still went on with his dark Mr. Badger. He, and the producers clearly didn't do their research on his act before they put him on. And I've had other experiences where I've got a friend of mine, Gats's Candace, who's done quite well on Britain's Got Talent, and he's got a big viral following. He makes his living from like YouTube videos. And I've heard also from talent shows that once you go on them, they make a percentage of what you make on those talent shows, even after, especially if you've been successful afterwards. Um, I hear all these things about these talent shows, but I want to know what your experience of America's Got Talent was like.
Well, I was very thoroughly vetted. Um, I when I first auditioned, I was getting over COVID, and I was like, why did I even sign up for this dumb thing? I'm never going to get chosen. 70,000 people. So I did the dumbest thing I could do, and they loved it. They just died. They loved it. Um, and then I heard from them a few months later, and I brought the same thing back, but I tried to be perfect, and they didn't like it. So then I came back, and they said, "Okay, we totally see what you're doing," and they kind of gave me a little suggestion. And I came back the next week, and basically it was the act that you ended up seeing. Um, but I had to, because they said we need to make sure you're going to be able to fool them. So I would come back and do all these Zoom auditions, trying to fool the producers who were at that first tier level. So and I was sending them tapes because I was working out in clubs in New York. Um, I really had to just show. So they knew beyond exactly what I was going to do. And I mean, everything like the dream board that I show, I had to submit that, and their lawyers had to take a look at it and say, you can't have the Hollywood sign on your dream board. So now I use that in Sunny's act. Like, don't ever let a lawyer tell you to take your dreams off your dream board. Um, and they said, if is this copy? Oh, this image is copyrighted. We need to try to get the rights. So they knew I mean, when I went on, because I have stuff in every pocket as Sunny. And so I was like, okay, in this pocket, I have two egg shakers. In this pocket, I have like I gave them a rundown of all my props. So it was very controlled because they didn't want someone going on there and like, you know, but see, it's interesting because not every act that's appears gets aired. So there are all these layers of like executive decisions. Um, and so yeah, so it's and yet it's not communicated, to the judges, so it's like a fresh thing. Um, so that's surprising that they would be caught off guard unless they, like at the last minute, I could have done something totally bizarre, but that would never make it to air, because it's not live on that
Yeah.
first year.
That's it was done about a year ago, but that's what I remember from it. And well, I'll be interested to hear what your thoughts are if you do listen to that particular episode.
So
But
Mr. Badger.
the interview's called "Performing as Three Comics."
Oh, okay.
But and what was it like beforehand? Like the nerves and all of that. That must, even though we get taught all of this in Golia, there must have been all sorts of things going through your mind before you went on stage. You see it in, my God, what was that like? The whole
I
experience
was
when you were getting ready for the
so
show.
I was so relaxed. I didn't care. I was surprised I even got there. That my only goal was to get four X's and to not play the song.
Yeah.
So I was so relaxed last year. Like it blows me away how chill I was because I was the last act of the night. And I mean, I was with the producer and I was walking to the stage. I was like, yeah, we're just joking. And then I started, getting nerves. And when I was backstage, I started doing this like weird Tai Chi stuff. And then like funny, I like got on my knees and I was like praying. And I was just, and nobody, like the camera people nobody knew. They're like, this just weird guy is back here doing all this bizarre stuff. Because I do have rituals. Like I'll go and I'll like have my arms up in the air, and so I was just like, I'm just gonna let it all hang out as Sunny. And I mean, I was using the male bathroom, like nobody knew. Even at sound check, it was just my producer there, and the crew guy was like, "Play your song," and I was like, "Well." I was like, I don't actually need to be mic'd. And he's like, I'll mic you. I have to mic you. Um, but in terms of like, there was no, like, even, like, I had the whole stage. So there was such freedom around. I was just happy I got flown out and got a hotel room. I was just so excited to be there, like very much like Sunny. And I had like 10 minutes of act when you're only supposed to do 90 seconds. So my goal was just to do my whole act and get four X's and not play the song. So I was so relaxed. I was so chill. And that's why when they kept trying to stop me, I was like, but no, I have these egg shake because I had like 5 more minutes of act to go. And I wanted everyone to be part of it because when I would do it in clubs, like everyone would take their keys out and they would shake along to the song. Um, I had this whole thing where, because with the cards, they're numbers. So if they would pick a card, I've got a list of numbers and song titles in my pocket that I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't. Simon, can I borrow your readers? So like, and then like I had this whole vision of how it was going to go down, and it didn't. And so I was fighting for it. I was like, no, can I come down there? Because I really wanted to go down to the desk to see if I could fool him. So I kept trying to go down to the desk. Like, I mean, my act, I was out there probably 12 to 15 minutes, but they have to kind of cut it down. Um, and so I just didn't care. I just wanted to do this brilliant act that I'd written. I wanted the world to see my brilliant act, and they wouldn't let me. They kept stopping me. And if they hadn't stopped me, I would have gotten through the whole act and I would
Oh,
have ended up playing the song.
but you did go through. So that, whatever the
Yeah,
case is, you won it, that
yeah,
audition.
yeah.
What were your thoughts going through in that moment when they sort of like go drop? Then what? So when they did that, were you think, right, I'm going to mess with them. I'm going to show them that I'm with the moustache thing. That was brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, that was very specifically, that was very intentional. And it was wild because even before I went on stage, I didn't know how I was going to get the mustache off. Like in New York, I was like tying string to it. I was just dumb stuff. And I was I didn't even know before I went on stage how that was going to come off. And it did. And I've been kind of practicing like, hey, what the, just before I got on stage, I actually tried to confuse myself as much as possible, which I think works. And just trusting that I had everything because I had a whole backstory. And actually, the night before the show, I put on index cards on the wall all these elements like my best girl P, Paris, Texas, custom car embroidery. Like I had all these things so that I wouldn't have a script in my mind when I walked on stage. So I just sat the night before and sat in front of all these words on the on that I put in post-it notes on the wall. I just like took it in and I trusted because the talk back, the question part was like it was pretty awesome. I loved it. But I couldn't have had that freedom if I had sat down with a script. And that's how this year was different because it was so, it was, I had a very, the act was really so involved. It was a magic act that there was no reveal. And, but it had to be that thing where you felt like something was going to happen, because on these shows, it's like, pick a number, pick the name of a song, and it all comes together. Um, and so this year I was just really tense. And I had this push-up bra that I chose to put on that was so uncomfortable, but I didn't realize when they put the microphone that has to, so I could barely breathe, and I was wearing heels, and I was just trying to keep all this stuff in my brain, and I had audience coming on stage, so I had to deal with that business, and Terry I had to give people direction, and it was insane. I'm so sad that people aren't going to see it because it was a masterpiece. It was a masterpiece. And it was a thing where they were so excited and so on board that I was like, can I have balloons with the judge's face? So I just kept making it bigger and bigger. And and it was just that was scary because I was like, it has to, because I wanted it to be good. And maybe that was not the problem. But with Sunny, I didn't care. I was like, I'm just happy to be here, just like Sunny. And the second time I did it, it's almost like the second time you perform anything. Like the first time's awesome, and then the second time you're like, it's gonna be great again. And but it was still, a lot of people laughed, but with Sunny, it was like all the crew were fist bumping me. Everybody was like, that was awesome. One of the main producers I worked with like gave me a hug and they said like we worked so hard, because all the tapes I sent in, I think he felt my relief. Um, but yeah, I think for me it works when I'm just confused, prepared but confused, but not overly prepared, you know, where I'm trying to run through in my head the order of things when I can be loose.
What
Yeah.
was the aftermath of all of that? Because I know that there's a lot of when you get a viral clip like that, and you get sort of you get you were famous, and you're famous. People know you now. There's a lot of people that know you now, and like there's a bit of an aftermath of it, isn't it? You get a lot of good stuff, but you must get a lot of strange stuff as well. I know that one of my friends in the comedy circuit, he got cancelled because he made a mistake. Well, I'll tell you the full story. He did a joke that was very close to the wire. He made a joke about
Mm.
Thailand and ladyboys and all of that, and it's it's obviously dodgy and a bit iffy territory. And there's two transgender ladies that left the gig, and he didn't know that. and he said the trannies have left. In the context, it worked quite well in the room, and in the in the context, it worked. It did quite well. And I know Adam, he's a good guy, and but his humor pushes the boundaries a bit. But one of those guys was a famous transgender lady with a big social media following. She posts that online, and she gets him cancelled from a few gigs, and he got some very dodgy messages. Like, you got people saying, "Mr. Baldhead, you look like a potato wedge," and then one person mentions him for 48 hours. I hope you choke on a cock. but but he dealt well that he was quiet for 48 hours. He didn't inflame or anything. He just said nothing, and eventually it died down. And he's not big or famous, so that's why he survived the incident. But if he had been viral and famous, and that incident, it would have probably been a lot worse. But for
Mm.
you, when you get a big sort of post like that, there must have been a lot. It wasn't offensive or risky like that, but you must have had a lot of good and a lot of bad, and some strange things happened through that.
Wow. Well, the interesting thing was people think Sunny's a real person
Okay.
because the clip, like, it was wild because initially it got like 60 million views, like 36 on, on TikTok, Instagram. And my name was tied to that, but then this year it had to go down. But people think Sunny's a real person, which is kind of amazing. Um, and so I don't think I got as much traction with my name because of the nature. Like when I would post afterwards and people were coming to my gigs. But in my mind, I was like, oh, this thing happened, then something amazing. Um, but I didn't really have anything solid to follow it up with, you know. So I don't know. I thought, oh, everything's gonna change now. And and so I was very and it was confusing because I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now because I was trying to get like because there's so many straight agents here. Um, I was trying to get someone, and it was also the strike was going on. I was reaching out to people, and I was like, well, do I want to do like LA law? What do I want to do? Um, and so I was really even confused where I fit in, where I wanted to fit in. And it's really taken me a year to see, oh, I have this amazing property of Sunny Chatham. Oh, I've written this great show where people I've been around in New York dressed as Sunny and people recognize me. Or over Thanksgiving, I was at this big party and this woman's child recognized like my facial stuff. And when I mentioned to her, the kid was like, "Oh, I left a comment on your thing," but they're not sure that I'm that same person. So it's interesting. So my goal right now is to kind of not capitalize, um, but to to harness that, like, that Sunny is so recognizable to people who love that show, or even um, he's recognizable. So to take that, and to have a show that I can tour and have you know, a show that I can pitch, especially because he's had over 100 million views. So I'm like, okay, what can I do with this now? Um, because last year I was just kind of mesmerized by all the numbers. Honestly, I was just fixated, staring at this, and not knowing where to take it next. And right now, I'm just now starting to write to people, um, like cold emails and things like that. But I was kind of surprised. And I was like, oh, if I was a guy, would it be different? I don't know. But I don't, I can't know the answer to anything. All I can do is continue rowing the boat, right?
Yeah.
Creating material, creating my own material. Because I'm like, I like doing my own thing. Like I was in a scripted thing over the weekend, and it was lovely. Um, and I can do that. But I think what my real joy is when I'm playing with audience, and I love this character. I love being this character. Um, and he's got big plans. Sunny has big plans. Um, did I answer? Can I answer?
You did. Now, with the, what was your feeling like when you had that big, all this, were you excited? How did it change you as a person? Like, were you, because I noticed when you have a big moment or you have a little bit of success in different things, I don't know, I feel that something inside you changes a bit, like you feel a bit more confident in yourself or something changes. Did that in any way change how you felt as a performer?
I think I gave less of a crap.
Ah,
I really gave an, but it's, but I have to, I had to kind of deal with my own feelings of what's my identity. Like people were congratulating me afterwards, and I was like, well, what does it look like to you? Like I couldn't even see it because it was me. It was hard to even experience it. Like I did a gig a couple weeks ago, and it's someone I'd known from stand up. She's like, wow, what's it feel like to be famous? And I was like, oh, is that what happened? I don't know. People were asking that. It was almost like I had shame around it. It was really strange. And now I'm just now, it's like, can I actually see myself accurately? And even just the last week, I've been like going through accomplishments and things I've done. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I can reach out to this person that I have, uh, uh, that I had, an experience with, whether it's a producer, whoever. I can reach out to them. I was like, oh, I'm at that place now where I can do that. So, um, because I can still see myself as that open mic comic, you know. And my conception of myself is really, I've really needed to change that, and that's been a lot of like, you know, absolutely not do anything for free, and just, um, and I really need to. I think I need to think larger, than I've been thinking, and I think when I'm still thinking small of myself, I don't think anything's going to happen. But I have to walk into this new image of myself before I think the abundance can truly come.
okay. What could you elaborate on that last statement you said there in terms of how you think of yourself changes you you feel changes results from the outside world?
I think it's the most important thing I can do to do the internal work, um, because my subconscious self-limiting beliefs are going to keep that away from me, so that the abundance can be right in front of me, and my self-doubt can push it away and not even see the abundance. I notice myself saying, I don't know, self-defeating things, or saying no to things, or not, and I can't even see it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I can't even see it. So I've done a lot of just writing to like clear out these subconscious old ideas that I can make huge amounts of money, and I can, prosperity is drawn to me. So I really, because otherwise, if I'm not coming from that place, then I am saying yes to these little things that are free, or, I really have to look at myself as a professional, as someone who has something to give, right? I have, you know, my vision is to bring laughter and joy to billions of people. That's my vision. And to lighten people's spirits, and to get people into that place where they feel like they're like that child, like, oh, I get to play an instrument that looks like a yogurt. Oh, this is because I have these two yogurt containers. I'm like, here, you can play the bongos. And they're like, it's like people have their moment because they get to be part of this band. And I want to connect people to that childlike freedom. Like that's my vision.
Okay. Now, I think with everything as a whole, who are who are your heroes from outside of who are your heroes in comedy, and who are your heroes outside of comedy, and how have they shaped your life?
Goodness. Oh my goodness. My heroes inside comedy, Vigo is definitely one. Who he ended up being my teacher for melodrama,
Yes, I saw that. What?
which was amazing. Gosh, I'm sorry. Um, he's one of my heroes, and it was cool because he Zach and Vigo did a show here in New York, and Vigo said he's like, "Is Sunny coming?" And I was like, "He can find his way." So I dressed up as Sunny, and I didn't know he was going to pull me onto the stage, but I had a moment as Sunny, like a moment of stillness,
Hmm.
of confusion, um, and then I beat myself up afterwards. Oh, I should have done this with it, just so he's one of my heroes. Jim Carrey, Sacha Baron Cohen, they're all on my dream board, you know. Um, um, those are my big comedy heroes. Um, and outside of comedy, um, I do transcendental meditation. So the guy who runs the David Lynch Foundation, his name's Bob Roth. He's one of my heroes. Um, he does these twice a day calls where before you meditate, he reads some kind of thing about the genius of nature and then closes it out with a poem. And that's really changed my life. Um, and just people who are being of service, who want to leave things a little, who want to create something in the world where people's burdens are a little bit lighter. Those are my heroes. So he's a hero. Who else outside of comedy? That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. Um, but I know that I aspire to be, and I know that the financial stuff can definitely follow when I'm trying to be of service, um, not just to myself but to others. Um, yeah, I don't know who my heroes outside of comedy. That's a good question.
And no, I think that's it. It's been a great little chat. Now, for anyone that's listening in, how do they find out about you?
You can look up Sunny Chatham, America's Got Talent, or you can find my website, Krista Komondor, KristaKomondor.com. And oh, do you have your calendar on you?
I've got it on my laptop.
Oh, okay. Um, um, yeah, those are the best ways to find me on TikTok and Instagram, Krista_Komondor. Um, yeah, thank you so much. Uh, it's been really fun just exploring all these. It's fun. I'm like, I hope I wasn't too dark.
Yeah, it's all
It's
good.
all
Uh,
good.
Honestly, I absolutely love doing the podcast. I love chatting to people from people across the globe, different perspectives, different things. And yeah, I think to every guest that I've had on, including yourself, I'm always thankful for each guest because you get to help allow me to do the one thing that I love more than anything else, which is chatting to interesting people.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for having me. It
And
was
for
really
anyone that's listening out there, you know where to go about Krista. And if you've liked this episode, give this episode a review on Amazon, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast. And yeah, I think the next few episodes probably going to be I'm going to be interviewing people in improv. Probably going to make it more international next year. I think I'm going to try and find out about comedians in Africa, more about comedians in Asia. But let's see how it goes. And guys, I'll see you next episode.
Au revoir.